I walked into my cousin's engagement party, forcing a calm I didn't feel, pretending everything was normal. The air was thick with laughter, clinking glasses, and forced cheer, but my eyes immediately found her, my aunt. She stood near the edge of the crowd, poised yet fragile, like a porcelain figure teetering on the brink of collapse. Across the room, I caught my uncle's subtle smirk aimed at her, a slight tilt of his head, a barely there sneer, and she responded with a tight, practiced smile. Her lips moved, but the strain was obvious, a silent scream masked by etiquette. I felt my chest constrict, anger coiling inside me. Guests whispered behind her back, words sharp enough to cut through the room's pretense of celebration. "She's always been difficult," one murmured. Another giggled, the sound brittle, echoing in her ears while she stood frozen, invisible. My aunt's hands trembled slightly, fingers twisting the edge of her dress. She hesitated, opening her mouth, then closing it again, swallowed by fear and expectation. Then I heard it, a cruel joke about her past mistakes, carried across the hall like poison. Laughter erupted, echoing in a way that pressed against my ribs. She tried to laugh too, a hollow, brittle sound, but her voice cracked, betraying the pain she fought so hard to hide. My helplessness hit me first, sharp as a knife, quickly followed by a surge of burning rage. The family circled her carefully, subtle pressure like a cage around her dignity. "It's okay, let it go," someone murmured, a gentle command wrapped in coercion, the unspoken rule clear: stay silent, stay small. Her glance flicked toward me, eyes wide, desperate, silently pleading for understanding, for someone to see her struggle. A phone flashed nearby. A guest was recording her, capturing the embarrassment in high definition. My stomach churned. The host leaned forward, voice warm but cutting, undermining her contribution to the family, as if her life's efforts were trivial. Her smile faltered, just a fraction, and I felt the weight of her restraint pressing down like a physical force. The injustice hit me with the force of a punch. My aunt, brilliant and strong, was trapped by invisible chains of expectation, constantly reminded of her place. A small accident, a dropped plate, a spilled drink, was twisted instantly into another public joke, the crowd's amusement feeding off her humiliation. My chest tightened. This was not casual teasing. This was systematic, deliberate silencing. Every look, every whisper, every gentle reminder of her supposed faults had been building to this, a suffocating atmosphere designed to keep her voiceless. And yet, through it all, I watched her endure, waiting, patient, silent, but never broken. I remember the nights when the house was quiet, when everyone else had retreated to their rooms or their routines, and she stayed awake. My aunt, always my anchor, had carried the weight of our family on her shoulders after my parents died. She worked tirelessly, often skipping meals, bending herself into exhaustion, all to keep us afloat. And yet, no one ever truly acknowledged it. Her sacrifices were invisible, her achievements minimized, and her career opportunities blocked by the very people who should have. Whispers followed her through every room, rumors planted carefully, almost invisibly, by my uncle. "She's too sensitive. She overreacts." Those words haunted her, eroding confidence she barely had time to protect. Once, when I was alone with her, she confided quietly, her voice trembling, barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I feel powerless. Like no matter what I do, it's never enough." I saw it firsthand. Friends turned away, colleagues dismissed her as too emotional, a label used to cage her brilliance. I remembered my childhood, moments when she shielded me from bullies, taking blows meant for me, hiding her own tears behind a stoic face. And yet, betrayal was never far. One family friend she trusted had swindled her, leaving her financially vulnerable, a wound layered over years of silent suffering. She carried this burden alone. Anxiety wrapped around her nights, insomnia gnawed at her, and guilt sat heavy on her chest. I often imagined her quietly crying in her bedroom, the muffled sobs hidden from prying eyes. The weight she bore was unimaginable, an invisible armor built of endurance, patience, and silent strength. Despite everything, she forgave again and again, telling herself that peace was more important than confrontation. But I remembered the night years ago when she had tried to speak out at a family dinner, only to be shut down immediately. The memory haunted her, and me. Her fear of confrontation was real, but it was not weakness. It contrasted with a hidden intelligence, a resourcefulness that no one ever noticed. The betrayal she endured was more than family. It was society conditioning her to obey, to stay silent, to accept the roles imposed on her. And yet, I realized something that day. Her silence was never surrender. It was strategy. Every whispered insult she endured, every forced smile, every moment of patience. It was armor, carefully maintained, a preparation for the moment she would finally strike back and reclaim the respect she had been denied. Another email arrived that morning, its words dripping with thinly veiled authority. My uncle's tone demanded obedience, every line a reminder of the control he thought he held. I watched my aunt read it quietly, her fingers tightening around the paper, jaw set, eyes distant. The family, never missing an opportunity, continued their subtle digs at every gathering, each comment a small cut meant to remind her of her place. Her health was beginning to show the cracks their cruelty had caused: pale skin, anxious glances, avoiding eye contact with anyone who might judge her too harshly. And yet, she endured. I confronted my own fear in silence. What if she never spoke? What if this carefully built restraint collapsed under their pressure before she could act? Then, one evening, she leaned close, whispering to me a hint of a secret she had carried for years, something explosive, something that could unravel the carefully constructed facades of our family. My heart thudded as the weight of what she implied settled over me. The pattern was relentless. At a charity event, my uncle publicly belittled her achievements, mocking the dedication she had poured into her work. She smiled politely, nodding at the crowd, but I saw her hands clench into tight fists, the tension radiating through her every movement. Humiliation was now scheduled, timed to coincide with public events, a cruel choreography designed to shame her before witnesses. She began leaving notes in private, documenting every slight, every insult, a silent ledger of wrongs no one would dare ignore when the time came. The whispers grew louder, family allies offering veiled warnings. Stay quiet or you'll regret it. And yet she began to fight back quietly, subtle acts that unsettled my uncle, correcting his statements in front of others, small exposures that hinted at a brewing storm. A close friend leaned toward me one afternoon, voice low. She's waiting for the perfect moment. And in that instant, I understood. During a heated discussion, her eyes met mine, fierce, unflinching. I sensed the tempest she had been quietly preparing, years of patience and calculation ready to erupt. I began gathering evidence myself, recording patterns, collecting proof, silently supporting her cause. Every family gathering became a minefield. Each interaction weighted with anticipation and fear. The tension was palpable, every glance, every word charged with potential revelation. And through it all, she remained composed, the calm before the storm. Every slight she endured, fueling the fire she had been carefully nurturing for years. The phone rang late one evening, sharp and insistent. My aunt answered, and I could hear the tension in the line before she even spoke. The voice on the other end was dripping with menace, a thinly veiled threat meant to intimidate her into silence. She listened calmly, steady, almost serene, letting the words wash over her without reaction. Then, with a quiet click, she ended the call. In that moment, everything changed. I noticed it immediately. Her posture straightened, shoulders squared, gaze sharp and unflinching. The quiet hesitation I had grown accustomed to was gone. She had become assertive, unshakable, a storm contained beneath a composed exterior. Then she revealed it. The long-kept secret. The truth she had guarded for years. My uncle's financial and emotional manipulations, a web spun over decades to control and humiliate. And she had proof. Emails meticulously archived, recordings of private conversations, documents chronicling every calculated betrayal. I realized then that her silence had never been submission. It had been strategy. She had been waiting, carefully, patiently, for leverage she could not be denied. She began recruiting allies quietly, reaching out to family members who had no idea of the truth, planting seeds of understanding and support. And when the time came, the confrontation was inevitable. At a family dinner, tension hung thick in the air. Each glance and movement waited. She did not flinch, not once, as the room pulsed with anticipation. She caught my eye and signaled me to stay calm, teaching me silently the power of patience, the art of waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then, almost imperceptibly, the first domino fell. She exposed a small lie publicly, a minor deception my uncle had relied on to assert control. The room went still. He reacted violently, his anger sharp and loud, but he could no longer fully control the narrative. I watched as her reputation began to shift subtly before everyone's eyes. Allies noticed her composed courage, the quiet authority she carried effortlessly. Murmurs spread, unease rippling through the family as the balance of power began to tilt. Finally, she leaned toward me, her voice calm but commanding. Timing is everything. Wait for the moment they can't ignore. And in that instant, I understood the depth of her patience, the magnitude of her planning, and the storm that was about to break. The invitations had been sent weeks ago, framed as a celebration, but I knew better. My aunt had orchestrated every detail, every smile, every arrangement with purpose. The day arrived and the room was buzzing with polite chatter and clinking glasses. She stepped forward, calm, poised, and the murmurs quieted. "My family," she began, voice steady, eyes sweeping across the crowd. "There are truths we've all ignored for too long." Each word was measured, precise, carrying the weight of years of silence. She acknowledged every slight, every betrayal, laying them bare with a calmness that cut deeper than any outburst ever could. The guests froze. Shock rippled through the room, whispers dying into stammered apologies. My aunt lifted a folder, her hand steady. She presented proof, emails, contracts, recordings, all detailing my uncle's manipulations, financial schemes, and emotional betrayals. The room shifted. My uncle's face went pale as he stammered denials, but the evidence was irrefutable. Legal repercussions hung in the air. Inheritance and financial control were now in question, a silent threat that could no longer be ignored. She turned her gaze to the guests who had encouraged her silence, those complicit in maintaining her oppression. One by one, she exposed their roles, peeling away the veneer of civility. I watched, stunned, as she transformed before my eyes. The quiet woman I had always known became a commanding presence, deliberate in every gesture, every syllable. She called out favoritism, hypocrisy, and pain that had long been ignored. My uncle's arrogance faltered as allies quietly shifted toward her side, recognizing the authority she had reclaimed. Her voice never wavered. Her eyes scanned the room, reading reactions, testing control. I moved silently beside her, ensuring the small details, the documents, the timing, the delivery, reinforced her narrative, making her case impossible to challenge. The moment was cinematic. Gasps, shifting alliances, stunned silence. Finally, she paused, locking eyes with everyone in the room, and asked, "Who will finally listen, if not now?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unignorable. The family's power dynamic had reversed. Her silence, once a symbol of oppression, was now her authority. She had spoken, and the world had no choice but to hear. My uncle slunk away that evening, shoulders hunched, eyes avoiding everyone in the room. His arrogance had crumbled, and the guests could see it. his control stripped away by the very woman he had tried to silence for decades. One by one, family members approached my aunt, offering words of support, reconciliation, and admiration. They acknowledged what they had ignored for so long, and a quiet reverence began to bloom around her. I sat back, feeling the satisfaction of justice, a satisfaction so quiet, so absolute it left the room heavy with awe. In the weeks that followed, she began asserting herself everywhere, at public events, in community gatherings, even in spaces she had once avoided. Legal and financial matters gradually tilted in her favor. The independence she had long been denied was finally hers. The family, slowly but surely, began to respect her choices, recognizing the wisdom and endurance that had always been hers. She continued to mentor me, her lessons steeped in patience, strategy, and moral courage. The lingering tension in the family eased, replaced by a cautious harmony that felt fragile but real. I watched her breathe easier, her expression carrying relief and quiet pride, proof that she had waited, planned, and executed flawlessly. Every detail of that journey I journaled, knowing the story of her courage demanded to be told. The scars remained, etched deep, but they were no longer marks of defeat. They were badges of resilience. She reclaimed the spaces she had once been denied, unapologetically herself, walking with a confidence that radiated strength. And finally, I saw her smile, truly, freely, for the first time in decades. In that moment, a deep sense of closure washed over me. The storm had passed, but the victory, the justice, and the reclamation of her life would echo forever. I want you to see this through my eyes, to feel every moment as I did. Patience, strategy, and courage. They weren't just words from my aunt. They were the weapons she wielded silently for decades. I learned that the cost of silence can be crushing, but the power of speaking at the right moment can change everything. Standing beside her, supporting her truth, I realized something profound. Even the smallest act of loyalty can alter the course of injustice. Public humiliation, when turned on its head with calm, calculated precision, becomes a force stronger than any insult. So I ask you to notice the quiet ones, the people who never demand attention, who watch, who endure. They often hold the keys to the truth. Emotional resilience, I've learned, is a weapon stronger than